So today I want to talk to you about communication, and not the way you would probably think, right? We list and sell hundreds of homes annually, and the communication between our clients and us is pristine. Certain buyers and sellers, require a certain level of communication, and I think they should receive that. The communication that I'm talking about is the back-end communication between your agents, those representing you, the lenders, the industry communication, right? And specifically, I want to talk to you about agents because as our market has shifted now, things are a little bit more difficult, taking longer, rates are up, demand is down, inventory's up, homes aren't selling as fast as they once were. There's a lot of contraction in the marketplace. You start to see who the pros are. More importantly, you start to see who knows how to communicate when times are tough. When things are easy, you don't need communication, unfortunately, because things are moving at such a fast rate. Everybody's making money. Nobody's unhappy. When the market starts to contract, things change and shift. Communication becomes key so that you can set the right expectations. And we do that for our clients, not just with their property, but when we get into a deal. Case in point is a transaction that we're falling out of escrow on. This property, when we got our first offer, we put it together, but the agent was telling us everything we wanted to hear. At the same time, I've been around long enough to know there's just a few holes in what he was saying, but I had no other offer to present. And my clients knew this and understood it as well. So we were playing the cards that we were being dealt. At the same time, with the understanding that if anything were to change, we just want to be ahead of the curve and make necessary changes so that it would impact our client and our situation, because that's my fiduciary job, to represent our sellers to the max. And so sure enough, through the transaction, everything's going beautifully. Inspections, negotiations, walkthroughs, the whole bit. And then when we get to the financial part, which is the most critical part in your transaction, because it makes or breaks your deal, I started noticing the lack of communication on what I was asking for in terms of where we were at in the stages of the file. And so sure enough, we went from literally lack of communication to no communication to ghosting me. And so because of who I am and because of this beautiful thing we call technology, we can find us. We can find everybody, everywhere. So if you're not going to return my call, that's okay. I'll email you. If you don't want to email me back, that's okay. I'll find you on social media. I'll text you. I'll show up to your office. I'll call your escrow, your lender, everyone else, so that we can get some answers, because that's what's required when we're selling a property and our clients made arrangements and made agreements with you that you're not fulfilling on now. So communication is key. And whoever you work with, you want to make sure that they communicate to a high level, almost over communicate to you, because this is one of your largest transactions in most cases. But back to this story. So here it got interesting. I started seeing these blemishes in their communication that I already prepped my client. I don't like what I'm hearing. And not to mention, I'm not hearing anything at this point. So there are certain parts and timelines in the contract where we can force the buyer's hand to perform, but we were way ahead of those timeframes, so we couldn't, essentially. So what we did was proactively started to prep our clients, prep the market, prep the property to start to go back on the market to get a backup offer just in case something were to fall through. And the only reason we were doing this is because our hand was being forced with the lack of communication. And then I take it a step further, because the home we were dealing with was actually, they were selling another property to buy ours. So I went above and beyond the current agents, went to the source, started to find out they're the ones having trouble on their loan. They graciously communicated with us. The crazy thing is, when I brought this to my current agent's attention, they denied it. They said it's no big deal. They're going to get through it. They probably told you the wrong file. So they continued to press on when they finally actually got back to me, right? Which I just don't understand this, because there's no reason for not being truthful, right? Transparency is huge, especially in these transactions. You've got multiple families in the, in line here that are all trying to accomplish something. And so because I already knew that deal is not going to go through, I had told my clients, here's the steps we now need to take. And the action was sending out what's called a notice to performance, forcing them to follow through. And then when they don't follow through, per those articles, then you send a demand to close, because we were now past our escrow period. That's how I'm giving you kind of the short condensed version. The whole point of this story, though, is the agent still kept their position of saying there's no issues when I already know the other deal isn't happening. So what we did was we started showing the property. We had a small gap of time where, there was uncertainty of, is the home going to sell? Is it not? We were able to find a backup offer. I communicated with this backup offer, told them our circumstances. They got to wait. We got to be transparent. We got to follow these lines of communication so our deal can terminate over here properly, and then we can open escrow with your transaction, which we did just that. And lo and behold, here we are in escrow, new buyer, a little bit more money, a little bit more happier clients now. Great communication happening because I set the stage with this current agent just the same way I did the last time, but fortunately so far that agent has been following through and their level of communication has been superb. So communication is huge when you're in a real estate transaction and just in life in general. Communication with your spouse, with your significant other, with your family, your friends, your kids, communication's a big deal. More so in real estate transactions because that's what we do for a living. So you want to make sure with whoever you work with down the road, ask them what's their level of communication. Do they text? Do they email? Do they call? Do they return call? How long does it take for them to get back to you? Is it a day or 2, 3 days, 24 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours? Find all this information out. More importantly, if you're in the industry, talk to your contemporaries the same way. If it's another agent, I like to ask that agent, hey, how do you communicate? Text, email, phone. I'm not going to be a pest, but let's follow through on what we agreed upon, because if not, then I will be a pest for my clients, not just because I want to be, but because we made agreements and we have to follow through with those. So communication, I'd love to hear in the comments below, how do you like to communicate? How do you like to be communicated to? It's such a big, important thing to talk about on a regular basis. Thanks for joining me on Post in the Patio today. Cheers, until our next combo.